everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm here with Lauren today. Lauren, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I am Lauren Dyche. I am a certified integrative health and nutrition life coach. I am currently one of the practitioners on Sofia Health, and I specialize in boundary setting and shame empowerment coaching. So I have a background in education. I used to be a middle school English teacher, and so it just kind of naturally evolved my passion for helping people learn English curriculum into helping individuals learn how to better their life and how to create more wellness.
It's amazing. So I see that you focus a lot on Sofia Health's website about setting boundaries, self-esteem, and getting rid of shame. So how do we think that these three categories kind of intertwine?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, such a huge loaded question to start. Okay. So I think that when we're talking about shame, self-esteem, and boundary setting, we really at face value can start with self-esteem. It's one of those things where from the outside looking in, we're like, oh, that person's super confident, or wow, that person's just really motivated and knows how to do all of the things with X, Y, and Z. But self-esteem can also manifest in a lot of other ways, like overproductivity or perfectionism or hyperactivity. And I think that a lot of that stems from looking for external validation markers to help us hide away or bury down some of that shame. So the way that I tend to define shame is more around this feeling that's internal of worthiness. And it's that feeling of, oh, I'm not good enough or I'm unlovable. It might be something stemming from a childhood trauma. It could be an experience that happened in high school. It could be just some little niggle of an interaction that maybe you're not familiar with at the moment, but every once in a while, this little stirring comes up from inside and you're like, oh gosh, like I'm not good enough, or I'm imposter syndrome or whatever it might be. So boundary setting comes in from this place of worthiness, meaning I know my value and I am allowed to communicate my needs to other people. So with boundaries, I tend to help my clients understand it most simply by thinking about physical boundaries that we see in our everyday life. So if we're walking along the sidewalk, we know what sidewalk feels like, looks like, and it's a clearly defined boundary walking path versus the street. The street is a boundary that has different physical markers. And among the way we might see things like fence lines or stop signs, green and red lights, and different things like that. These are all ways to communicate the needs of a situation. So when we think about our relationships with ourselves and other people, it's a lot more difficult to be able to read those signs. So not everyone's super expressive and doesn't have those do not enter here signs. So it's really important that we communicate those boundaries with other people, not only so that we open ourselves up to more freely communicate our needs, but also it helps us reassure ourselves of our own needs as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very true. I think the street analogy is super helpful. I think there are fine lines, but then there's also like signs that you have to be aware of other people's boundaries as well. So how can we be aware of other people's boundaries when they don't necessarily know the signs that they want to be putting out there? Or they don't have like their fence set up yet.
Yes.
And they're also trying to figure out their boundaries. How can we have a healthy relationship?
Love that. Okay, so one really good way to kind of check in is really look at what is bothering you or what is triggering you or what's annoying you. So for example, let's say that you're living in a quad, you've got a roommate situation, and you're really upset that they just came and stole some of the food items that you had out in the shared space and didn't leave anything for you, didn't give you a 5 or whatever it was for the snacks that they ended up taking and consuming. And you're like, well, what the heck? Like, hello, boundary. I'm mad. So if there are some like feelings coming up of resentment or annoyance, those are really good, quick indicators to assess what's going on. So in that specific situation, It might be an emotional boundary or just a plain old physical boundary that was violated. That's something that you spent your income on and you would like some compensation for it, or at least you would have loved some communication of like, hey, can we eat this snack? So look for signs that are uncomfortable in your body or in your emotional state. Or if you notice that you are getting very tired in those communications with people, that would also be a really good indicator. When we're in a loving, positive, energetic exchange with another person, there should be both give and take energetically on both sides. So if there's not, that might be an indicator to check in with yourself and really ask, what's going on here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes it's a little awkward to like have those sorts of conversations. So, what is like the best approach that's like not awkward? Like sometimes I feel awkward being like, "Oh, like I'm not happy when you do that." But like I feel bad making them feel bad, and like it just becomes like a very weird situation sometimes.
Oh, totally. And it's so funny too, because it's like you don't want to just throw up the big like FU sign to somebody because that's going to create more conflict. But I think it's also really important to communicate with loving intention. So, first step would be remembering that boundaries are about you. So, using I language, meaning like, myself, I, your needs. If you find yourself coming from the defense, well, you did this and like all of the like you, that's going to just create more conflict, and that person is not going to receive your needs. They're just going to go on the defensive and come to you from a place of offense. So I think really remembering that we don't have the ability to control other people, and that we can only control our own communication with those people. So I think a really great way to really communicate that is like, hey, I would love to talk to you about X. When do you have time to sit down and discuss this week? Instead of just like blindsiding them with like, dude, you ate my stuff, like give me my money for this. Like that's going to come out of left field. So I think prefacing the conversation with just a question, hey, I'd like to talk to you about X. When does this work for you? So that way it becomes a communication instead of an attack. And then really getting into using the I language. I work hard for contributing to the household. I'd really like to revisit our roommate agreement around, are we sharing groceries now? Are we splitting the cost for things? This made me feel X, Y, or Z, and leave it open for them to communicate back to you. So you're getting your needs heard by actually like validating your own feelings. Like, I'm mad, I'm upset. This hurt my feelings when you didn't ask me, or I felt disrespected. So communicating those feelings and then coming back to a place of inviting the other person to respond.
Yeah, that's amazing advice. Thank you so much for that. There is a question in the chat asking for any advice on experiencing imposter syndrome post-graduation.
Yes.
The example that they gave was being in a corporate setting, but not feeling like you're worthy of being there.
Yes, I love this question because it's so relatable. Like when we're in any kind of new job, not even just a corporate setting, but we're coming into an environment that A, we're unfamiliar with, but B, we're also excited. Like we care and we value that experience. So of course we want to perform well and be perceived well by other people. So I think it's really important to first note both of those things are accurate and both are valid. So coming into that experience, I would first start with reassuring yourself of your qualifications and what you have to contribute. Why are you worthy of this position? What can you bring that is different and beneficial to the company or to the people that you serve or the industry that you're walking into? Among that reassurance, ask yourself how much is external. Okay, so like when we first started our conversation today around like self-esteem and shame and them really kind of being intertwined, do you feel like the imposter syndrome is coming from a state of needing to show something or earn something? So I know, just speaking from personal experience for myself and other clients, I know that very early in my teaching career, I would make it a point to try to appear older, working with a different population. And when it really got down to asking myself just a simple 3-letter word of why, it really became about trying to externally validate what my worthiness was. I knew I was a great educator. I knew that I could serve those students in that community really well. So why did I need to dress or act differently? And I think that starting with that question of why can be really great, because it cuts down the disillusionment of, well, like there's a difference between valuing your appearance because you know that you look good and you know that that's how you want to present yourself to the world, versus showing up and pretending to be something that you're not, because eventually that is going to get to you and it's going to cause problems, not just in the actual environment that you value, but also with yourself.
Yeah, that's very true. It's definitely when you stop to like think about why you do certain things, sometimes it comes across like a little bit silly, if that makes sense, where it's like, why am I trying so hard to like fit in or trying so hard to be something I'm not? But like you can't stop it sometimes, but like when you take the second, you're like, that's really not okay. Like that's
Yeah,
like it's kind of silly to be like not who I am just to make people like me more.
absolutely. And I think it's important to like, so it's a technique that I use with my clients called laddering down, and you just keep asking why. So it's like, I feel like an imposter in this corporate setting. Why? Because I don't feel like I'm worthy enough to be there.
Mhm.
Why? Why do you not feel that you're worthy enough to be there? And then whatever that answer is, hit it with another why. Hit it as low as it goes. And then once it hits onto that shame, that feeling of I'm not deserving enough or I'm not good enough, then ladder it back up with all of the whys that demonstrate that you're worthy. Why are you worthy? Because you kick butt at school. Why? Because you are a bad A at doing whatever this job is. Like, get in there and revalidate all of the reasons for why you should be and are worthy of that job.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be using that technique. That's actually amazing. I got like the chills a little bit with like the you are amazing. Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us as well. Um, Circling back a little bit to boundaries. So we obviously have to set boundaries with other people, whether it's like a platonic relationship, a romantic relationship, but there's also setting boundaries within like yourself and your life. Um, what do you think like the hardest, I guess, struggles that people have around setting boundaries with themselves, as far as like not overscheduling themselves or making sure that they're getting enough sleep, and setting boundaries with like food and like what you're going to do with your time in the day?
Yes. Okay. So setting boundaries with yourself, what is the hardest part of that? I honestly think that it's, what's a good way to put this? I think it's really difficult to set boundaries with yourself because we are the least compassionate with ourselves. We say things to ourselves within our own mind that we would never, ever say to anybody in our real life, in our deepest relationships. So I think that it's really difficult for us to be compassionate of ourselves and be like, you know what, I do need more time on this, or I need a rest day, or I need to be outside. I need some sunlight, like whatever it might be. Even something like I need to ask for help on this situation. When we sit and we ask ourselves from a state of curiosity rather than judgment, it can become a lot easier. But if we're operating from this place of judgment of like, well, why can't I get this done? Why can't I hit the deadline? Or, well, so and so is able to do this in their sleep, and I'm struggling to understand chapter 1 of this content, or whatever it might be, that can be really difficult. And it can really make the boundary setting process not only ineffective, but how can we communicate it? If we're coming from a state of negative energy in the first place, it's going to be perceived negatively. So we're going to try to set negative boundaries and be met with negative reinforcement.
Mhm. And how can we use those boundaries that we set within our own relationship with ourselves and like set that into action with our relationships with other people, especially like as a college kid with like professors and people who we have as like bosses and stuff like that?
Absolutely. I think the easiest place to start with is remembering that boundaries are there for you to communicate your best self. So that can be a really difficult conversation to have with somebody because we come from this place of wanting to operate with, I value my parents, or I value this friend, I value this relationship with this professor because they're in these positions of authority or they're in a really close relationship to us. So we don't want to hurt other people. So I think that it's okay to note that. And if anything, it's a really great trait that we have so much love and so much care for the people that matter to us and the things that we're passionate about. So I think that when we're thinking about how do we set these boundaries with people, we have to prioritize our needs. If we're not operating on a level that is our best energy field, it doesn't matter how hard we continue to try to push and pursue something that's not in alignment with us. It is going to negatively impact all of those people that we were trying to not hurt in the first place. So the word resentment really comes up a lot with the clients that I work with because we grow resentful of the content that we might have been really passionate about going to college in the first place because we have a really negative relationship with the current class or the professor, or we grow resentful of the friendships that we valued because now we're living and sharing a space with somebody, or we're resentful of returning home to our family and friends that we go back home on breaks with because we're on totally different planes now. So I think that just coming from a state of communicating what you need in order to be your best self. So it can be very simple and just saying like a really good one is if somebody is like, hey, I need you to do this today. Boom. You guys have hybrid classes now. Things change, classes online, all of these things. Communicating your needs. So let's say that, what's a really good way to put this? I care about prioritizing this assignment for you, period, right? Can you please communicate times or dates that I can talk with you to make sure that I fully understand this new change in the assignment criteria? So you're coming from this place of communicating to a professor in this example of like, hey, listen, I'm not blaming you. I'm not attacking you. I care about this assignment. I care about this class. I would like some clarity on how to meet these expectations with the changes.
Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it. I feel like my first response, usually when there's like a change in my schedule, is like, ugh, like I had like this plan going already, and I hate when my plans change. And now I have to like completely adjust my schedule because I was supposed to be on campus all day, but now I have to like trek home for a 4:30 class. Yeah, definitely. I definitely think that that's a good way to put it. Very nice, respectful, not angry.
Well, right. And it's kind of silly when you think about it because like you're annoyed that things have changed, right? Justifiably so. And that creates anxiety when you're now having to change your plans. And if you're coming from a state of anxiety, you're not operating as your best self anyway. So you might just I need time to pivot and adjust. Like, can I communicate with you at a later time to get what I missed? Or, my Wi-Fi is down. Like, can I please communicate with you, or is the class recorded? Whatever it might be. You value the class or you value whatever the content is enough to be annoyed that there's a change to what it was. So coming from a state of noting that, hey, like I value this. Can I please talk to you about this? Or can we discuss modifications or adaptations given the situation or whatever it might be?
Yeah. All right. Last question, kind of deep. Knowing what you know now and all of your life experience and your life as like a coach and people or like coaching people through these kinds of situations, what would you do differently as a college kid, knowing everything that you know now?
I wish that somebody would have told me that if I don't put myself first, there's no amount of accolades that are going to fix that. So, like, what I mean by that is, I remember like just driving myself into the ground in college. And it was like my health and wellness was on the back burner. It was very much like, well, I'll get to it when I can get to it. I have bigger things to do. I have a job to work. I have a full-time class schedule. I've got, all of these things going on. And I wish that somebody would have just sat me down and been like, it's okay to like sit and have some time for you. It's okay to say no to things. Saying no to something is not going to diminish your worthiness, your credibility, your professionalism, your confidence, whatever it might have been that I was feeling in that moment. And it really, once we put ourselves first, whether that's taking a rest day, communicating our needs to other people, choosing something that's a better energy source for our bodies over something that might be a little bit more quicker or convenient, having an extra glass of water before our morning coffee run, whatever it might be, those little things that just show myself that I love and value myself. It allows me to show up in the way that I wanted to in the first place, which is coming from this place of operating as like this person who's here to serve and this person who's here to show the world what I can give and help other people. And so I feel like I wish that somebody just would have sat me down and just been like, hey, like, why don't you just truly communicate? Like, no, like, I don't want to do something to your boss. Like, or, hey, I need help on this assignment, or like, hey, you're not weak for asking for help. You're not wrong for asking questions. You're not bad. You're not unlovable by saying no. So I wish that somebody just would have sat me down and been like, hey, like, your worthiness, your being in this world doesn't change just by saying what you need.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lauren. And if somebody is seeking help from you, where can they reach out to find you?
Oh, wonderful. You guys can book me on Sofia Health. You just search for Lauren Dyche. I have free consultations. You guys can reach out to me on social. I'm Lauren_Dyche_. Reach out. You can also email me at Lola Loves Wellness. I'd love to connect.
Thank you so much.